All right. Peace and blessings in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, who is, was, who is to come, the Almighty Maker of heaven and earth. Amen. I'm gonna make sure first of all, because it's plugged into the Shaw mic. I don't know what's going on there, so I hope it's
You want me to
yeah.
check if it's working?
Yeah. Just check if it's because I don't know what's going on. I can't hear myself, so there's no I can't hear my own. Oh yeah. It's all good. It's all good. Okay, yeah. So we're back again. Tell a friend, tell a friend. You know what? I decided to do this because I wanted people to, to look at this video and to look back at. Oh yeah, now I can hear myself. It was actually muted. So I wanted people to be able to look back at, what we've done at Speaker's Corner, the way the Lords use it, and just my history at the place because I've, been going there for the last 6 years. Now we have stopped by the grace of God, and I'm hoping to never go back again. There are various reasons, obviously, why we're not going back again. For me, I'll just give my personal reasons. One is that it became very boring after 2022. There started to be some form of stagnation. The argumentation was completely boring. There was nothing new. And when you get to a position, and I'm not trying to be egotistical, but when you get to a position where you know the argumentation and the polemics against Islam, and considering Islam is going to be dominant at Speaker's Corner as it is, when you get to that point, you just end up, leaving it behind because it's like, there's only so much times you can pull out hadith. There's only so much times you can bring up Quran verses. I have Quran verses memorized, and I don't like speaking about the Quran. But you know, growth happens when we begin to outgrow the things around us, especially the concepts and views around us that we previously had. Now, I'll give a brief background. So I first started watching Speaker's Corner around around the age of 24. So that was around 2018. Now it's in so like Speaker's Corner was a different place during those times, right? And so, if I type it in, I'm going to show you the reason why I've done it this way, the stream this way, Lord loosen my tongue, is so that I can show you just exactly what's going on. So yeah, this was Speakers Corner 2018 was a different place, right? So let me just give you a few videos to be able to show you just how different Johnny, God bless you, Speakers Corner was, right? And then I'll go into more about my history of the place, and then we'll go into a few videos I've done in the past. So this was Speaker's Corner 8 years ago, right? So I think this is 2018, yeah, it's 12th of June. So there used to be this channel, right? So background information, there used to be this channel called Content Over Everything. Content Over Everything actually stopped going. The last time I think I've known him to be there was around 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. He really just stopped going, but he was one of the channels that were prominent at Speaker's Corner. I think Content Over Everything was a Muslim, from what I understand, or maybe a Black Hebrew Israelite. I don't recall anything other about him. I know that he had vitiligo. I remember meeting the guy for the first time. It was kind of interesting. But Content Over Everything, that was the channel you go to see Speaker's Corner content. And I just want to show you something that was prominent
That's
during
the
this
note
time. Let
about
me
the
just
new
show you.
sales hire. And this...
Oh, thanks. Let's get rid of that. So
They've lied to you. You're repeating lies.
So I don't know by the way, I don't know the story behind what's going on here, but I'm just showing you the character arc. Go away, stop it. Go away, man. What's going on?
Come around you anymore. Then some come back and say, bro, I checked what you said.
So as you can probably see, one of the most interesting things about Speaker's Corner is that at a certain point it was full of people. You can see many different types of people here. And, this is a conversation regarding racial narratives. It was a little bit more diverse during this time. You know, so you can see that, right? You can see various different types of people. Although it doesn't look like there was much people there, you can see it's very much full, and there was different types of ideological discussions, right? Let me just share a few things, right? So this wasn't the only thing that happened. There was Modine, of course. You probably know who he is. He's there with
follow Mary. I need to know.
So Modine, he's become the pompous character he is today. But I mean, in the past, he was just a Speaker's Corner attendee. Now he's on TikTok and he's hanging around celebrities on TikTok and getting into celebrity matches with people because his character, right? His character was one of being very idiotic, very stupid. There was an instance that happened around 2018 or 2019 where he started hitting on a trans man, right? Because it was a man, right? It was a trans who wanted to be a woman, but he was hitting on this trans woman or man, and it's kind of interesting. He was hitting on this trans man, but then he's just like. He's just like saying things like, "Oh well, it'll be haram for me to shake your hand, even though you're a man," or it was very
The camera
perverse.
is not connected, or is it?
It should be connected. Have you seen it? Is it not connected?
No, it is connected.
Yeah.
Respect Mary. You do not follow Jesus. You do
So then you have other characters as well. Like, look, you have it again. Look at the crowd, immense, right? The crowd of people are immense. You're seeing tons of people.
not
Right?
respect Jesus.
And you have, of course, Hatton Tash there. Obviously, you know of Hatton Tash. She's, prominent Christian, and I use that term loosely for her, apologist. She'd been going there for quite some years before I attended. And there she is in 2018 debating
so much. Jesus is
is shouting and cussing and whatsoever, right? But I'm just showing you the general vibe. Now, when I first started watching it, you would see characters like Leo Muhammad, for example, who you can see here, or Sarah Garvey. Let me just show you a few videos that I first saw when I first started going to Speaker's Corner. So, Sarah was one of the first that I'd actually started watching because I didn't know there was this speaking place at Hyde Park, But when I saw Sarah and his energy and the fact that he was standing up to, what is an immense crowd of Muslims? Like, you're talking many, many types of Muslims, right? He's standing up to them. When I saw that, I thought, well, this is interesting, right? So obviously that's from 6 years ago. He ended up stopping going around that time, actually. He stopped going 6 years ago. So he actually stopped attending when I had come. And maybe it was because of lockdown, because of the immense change that was caused there. But many of these characters actually stopped going. So this is obviously, Ali Darwa versus
You already did. You went
a very younger looking Mohammed Hijab. Before this, your Finnish boy persona. And then obviously Ali Darwa, right? And
against his essence by needing or wanting to create.
this is the sort of argumentation that I saw and that I relished and I liked it. I liked people being, verbose, aggressive. I'd never seen this sort of challenging before, especially amongst religious communities. Because, growing up in London, you don't really see that. Right? If you see these sort of argumentations, they're probably done in the middle of the street by some lunatics, but not in an open place where people are filming it and etc. is going on. And so it was a very different place. It was also a diverse place. Look at this, like,
We have got to the point
it wasn't Speaker's Corner, although it did have a lot of big Muslim population back in 2018 when I first watched it. It wasn't in any way, it wasn't just Pakistanis or a bunch of Arabs.
Literally anybody.
English, but it was actually diverse.
build a
groups of
fully
people
working app without knowing how to code.
and ideologies.
This is
So
Let's
this,
tell you the reality of the matter.
Forget the reality matter. Let's talk about the Torah.
I do
That's
remember
the
this guy
reality,
as well.
yeah.
He was
Yeah.
born there. This would be
For 24 years. One more time. What was he doing?
Yeah.
Getting
And of course, African spiritualist movements would go down Speaker's Corner as well. I think this is one of them. I think this lady was also one of them as well. And so you would see a diversity, sort of. It wasn't just the same old, Muslims versus Christians debate. That was something that would obviously have, that was something that would obviously dominate, especially post 2022. Now, there were people like Jedi and Gang who I remember watching. Jedi, massive dude, right? You know what I mean? I just got every. Look, I have to give props where props is due. The dude was massive. This was 7 years ago. Maybe around 2019, but good 7 years ago.
Are you a role model?
Hang on, I'm not your enemy here.
You never said you was the
So
answer.
what are you telling us what to do?
So this guy, I remember him. He was quite aggressive, right? Big guy, quite aggressive. I remember him shouting at a woman because of Tan's racism. Apparently, there was a dude named Tan who was racist there. I will get to Tan, by the way, and his ideology. There was also this guy as well. This guy whose name I've forgotten because it's been quite some years, but I remember watching his Speaker's Corner takes as well. He stopped making them. He stopped just going completely. We don't see him anymore. This guy used to go Speaker's Corner. He used to be a prominent speaker there. He doesn't go anymore. This guy, obviously, Jedi, used to go there a lot. Doesn't go there anymore. It's kind of interesting. The majority of the sort of older heads at Speaker's Corner stopped going after 2020. It was kind of interesting. You know, so there was obviously Uncle Omar, you know, who you guys have met. You know, there was Atheist Steve, you know, the basics. I think he still goes there. You know, but then there was the Rajinator. I remember, like, you know, Raj, his Terminator stick and all that stuff. And of course, Jedi and Gang. You know, Gang is, by the way, Gang is like some sort of Black Lives Matter front, from what I understood it to be. You know, it's basically just some sort of motivators who are essentially promoting, you know, some sort of black identity in the community. So it's just Black Lives Matter, just in a different nick, right? And obviously there was Jedi and there was Raspect. Now Raspect, who you're seeing on screen here, it was funny. Raspect and I, around 7 years ago, was it? Sorry, no, it was 7 years ago. What I'm talking about, it was around 6 years ago. So it's when I started out at Speaker's Corner. I and Raspect had a conversation on a channel which is now defunct. I think it was his channel. I jumped up on a panel to speak to Raspect about his denial of Christ. And I remember, you know, he had said, "Oh, you say that stuff to Muslims. You can't. I bet you can't say it in Summer Leighton. I'll get Muslims on you in Summer Leighton." Now, Summer Leighton's an area of Brixton. So what he was doing was immediately threatening. And I kind of found it interesting because his now, you know, defunct group, because I don't think they're even continuing on with anything. Lord loosen my tongue. His now suit is going to be Forever Family and all about the idea of Black lives and supporting Africans, etc., etc. And yet, you know, he was willing to even allow for another African to be attacked, or at least somebody who has African lineage and descendant to be attacked. Because again, these people are violent, and that's the hypocrisy of the Black Lives Matter movement. It's just violent thugs pretending like they care about the community when they really don't. And I saw that from a mile away, by the way. You know. So yeah, you've got that. You know, now Speaker's Corner, prior to me watching it, because I'm only talking about what I first started seeing. Speaker's Corner prior to that, prior to this whole thing, was you know, a place where Lenin was. Lenin came to Speaker's Corner. John Lennon came to Speaker's Corner at one point in history, and others. I think Ayn Rand went there as well, from what I understand. I don't know whether she did or not. So yeah, prominent individuals would go down Speaker's Corner and profess their ideology. One of those was Tan. Now Tan, you know, and it's been quite some years since I've watched him, so if I'm butchering it, let me know. But Tan was a Buddhist, I think, a Buddhist Indonesian monk type, right? Now you'd think that, well, you know, well, he'll be a bit calmer, he'll be a bit more chill, but no, Tan was pretty much into gunning down Islam and gunning down everything. Now he writes this sort of FU manifesto, in which he went to the park. I actually watched this back when he first said it, in which he went to the park and just basically called out everybody. Called out everybody, every single person, right? Now he was also aligning with Britain First, or I think it was Britain First, I think it was something else. But you know, he was aligning with some sort of ethno-nationalist white propaganda, you know, towards the end of his time at Speaker's Corner. And I found it kind of interesting because it's like, look, you know, he's an Indonesian man, or I think he is, or Malaysian. No, he's Malaysian. Sorry, my bad. He's a Malaysian man who evidently was not born here. He ends up actually getting deported, funny enough. So that's the end of his story. But he goes to the park, got cameras around him. Remember that the park is already full at this moment in time. So he's got cameras around him and he's just cussing everybody.
Now, what are you doing? Back up.
So let me just show you this.
Ready to fuck, nigga? Nigga!
So you've already heard, you can hear what he just said, right? He just used the word nigger. Now, you know, that's what made it funny, is that a random, short, pint-sized Malaysian dude in broken English is shouting nigger in the middle of the park. You know, as well as other stuff, attacking all religions and, you know, attacking all worldviews and just cussing. And the reason why he's doing it, obviously, is because he's trying to elucidate some sort of idea of, oh, well, freedom of speech, if it truly means freedom of speech, it means that we can say whatever we want and it doesn't matter. And at this time, that was the sort of focus of Speaker's Corner, in the sense that, you know, you could literally say what you wanted. That was the idea. You know, you could go there, you could say whatever you want, and it doesn't really matter because it's Speaker's Corner. And that's the mindset a lot of people have going into Speaker's Corner as well. And so that's why even around the groups here, you'd get hecklers who swear, cuss people's mothers, be very foul. You know, we've had that Speaker's Corner. But
Nigga, 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 fucking nigga! Fucking nigga! You know why people always say black people have low IQ? Maybe because it's true. If nigga is a racist word, which mainly an American thing, but somehow... Hey, ready to fuck nigga? Nigga, 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 fucking nigga! Fucking nigga! You know why people always say black people have low IQ?
now, you know, within the sort of politics of this little spill, Tan ends up getting, and there is footage of this, I might actually play it actually. It's kind of funny. Tan gets repercussions the very next Sunday because of this slander that he's causing black people, to the point where groups, crowds of Muslims or whoever, like you're talking at least a good 1,000 or so people are running him out of the park. The police have to stop a bus, a whole bus, to get Tan on it, and then to get people away from the bus to stop them from attacking him. Now, I you know, this is the entertainment that I was watching back in 2019. Speaker's Corner was different. It was different. There's no denial about that. In fact, I will show you that. Let me just continue.
Maybe because it's true. If nigga is a racist word, which mainly an American thing, but somehow black people around the world is so angry that they stop everyone from using the word nigga, but use it exclusively among themselves. If that is not an example of low IQ, I don't know what is.
So yeah, there was a lot of things I agreed with Tan on, like mainly the use of nigger, right? So if you're going to complain about the use of nigger from other cultures or races, then maybe don't use it yourself. If it has those connotations to be racist, then you shouldn't be using it yourself. It's just bog standard. But you know, I'm not going to really play his FU manifesto in whole, but if you ever got the time, you know, you can sit down and watch that, right? So then Tan and you know, ends up getting what I said before, chased out of the park. You know, there's a whole thing where he's caused trouble. He has to be escorted out. Now this is 4 years ago. This was not 4 years ago. It may have been around 7, or yeah, it would have been around 7 years ago. So yeah, because of what he said, obviously, this is what's happened.
Yeah, come on, man. Let's bring it to this.
Now you're talking tons. You're talking tons of people. Hey, by the way, I didn't show you. That's Pavlov. You know, Pavlov and I became friends at a certain point. No, we didn't stop being friends. We just, you know, I just, again, you know, the more I knew about Christ, the more I read his word, the more I realized that ultimately fellowship with those who are not in the light is no longer required. It's not not required. Lord, loosen my tongue. It's not something that should be encouraged or done.
No, come here, Ty.
Let's continue.
You know what you got to say, Let's live with it.
Now you're hearing the language. It's PUSSY. It's you got a dude with gang on there guiding New Generation. He's part of the Jedi crowd. Obviously, he's having a problem with.
Now
look at the crowd.
Freedom is
There was a lot more roadmen as well. I mean, the one thing that I've noticed in the last, I mean, maybe even 4 years, is that a lot less roadmen go to Speaker's Corner than they did before. I don't know whether that's just part of the course, but nowadays, when you know, especially within recent months, when I've gone up there, I've seen, you know, in majority, just again, like Muslims who can't speak a lick of English and, you know, foreigners passing through. In fact, you know, this sort of crowd you would normally get on the Hyde Park stage scene, like BTS and stuff like that. You know, but yeah, it's here to go after one dude who may or may not have said nigger. Now, yeah, he did say it, but I mean, so they've obviously had a problem with him shouting out that black people are deficient in mind and, you know, N-word and stuff like that. It's kind of funny because Young Bob did not get this sort of crowd, even though Young Bob is supporting people who say that black and brown should be murdered. I mean, but I mean, which is worse than what Tan said. Tan just used the word nigger and said we're deficient in mind, which is, I mean, it's his opinion. Don't care. Malaysian moron says some stuff in the middle of a park. Move along. But you know what I mean? But you know, the response is obviously a bunch of virtue signalers who are not black, right? These are just Muslims, and then you have Modine. I don't
It's not good for you, bro. I'm telling you, it's not a good look here, yeah?
Fucking whisper, where you going?
Hey, the Mark man. Hey, yo, Mark man, blood.
Where you going? What?
Yeah, there are obviously a lot of threats. I'm not going to spend too long on that, but that was it. Like, you would get like Tan, Raj, Respect, you'd get Gang. A lot more roadman orientated stuff before I came. And obviously there's people like Kane as well, right? You know, so I mean, I remember Kane. I actually, yeah, I've actually had his number. I've spoken to him privately regarding stuff. I'm not going to go too into it. There's a lot I disagree with Kane on. I think it's his attitude towards certain stuff, but theologically wise, I agree with him. Although I think he's a bit much of I think he's a bit too much of an extremist in areas that don't matter. But I mean, you know, yeah, so Kane, you know what he was known for, you know, burly guy, big guy, obviously muscly. He was actually, you know, I'm not going to dox him too much, but, you know, you could tell from his physique, he was actually like an instructor. He knows how to build. Like, he's really good at what he does. And, of course, I think that's what made his character that, you know.
If everyone wants to keep people where they are, it's okay.
You know, and he sort of, like, reminds me of a sort of pre-figure of Orlando, because Orlando has that same sort of vibrant character, right? But obviously Orlando is a heretic who denies the Trinity, and I don't think Kane denies the Trinity, from what I understand. You know, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but that was sort of the culture that I was seeing. Right? That was what I was seeing. You know, back when I was younger. And so viewing this stuff inspired me to go down to Hyde Park, because I did not know that was what was going down there. Karl Marx used to yeah, he did. Karl Marx used to speak at a frequent speakers corner. Yeah. I didn't know that either, but it's kind of an interesting tidbit. Did you go to speakers corner before you were Christian? No. So, you know, now I'm going to get on to my start at speakers corner. So I've already said it in my discussion, which I did online with individuals. I've already said, you know, my starts and my beginnings with Speakers Corner, but I'll just go through it again. So I actually first attended Speakers Corner in March of 2020. March of 2020. What am I talking about? Yeah. So I started to attend around that time. Now I hope the video is still online. But yeah, this would be one of the first videos that I did at the corner. Let's go to 2020, right? Now, at the time, I went by the name Captain Bloodfire. Now, here's the interesting story of that, right? So, you know, my YouTube username was Captain Bloodfire. It was a name that I thought was funny, so I just gave myself that name. And I used to obviously watch Speakers Corner in 2018, so I'd actually type in and message JC through that. JC being the cameraman and the author of the channel Soko Films. And so I would watch their content as well as the other content and live streams that were done in Speaker's Corner through content of everything and stuff like that. And I didn't obviously want to give my name. So I just basically said, look, like I'm Captain Bloodfire, I'm that dude who was there on the channel, right? And that's where JC took that name and just applied it to being my name. But this would be one of the first videos. It wasn't the first video. It was one of the first videos I'd done. Now, bear in mind, I was like 25. I'd only become a Christian 2 months before that. If anybody wants to know how I become a Christian, there's a good video on Psalms House TV where I've given my testimony. But yeah, I essentially met Christ, and 2 months after, I went to Speaker's Corner. Now, sorry, not even 2 months, 3 months after, I went to Speaker's Corner. Now, I've not read the Bible for long. I'm not joking. I've not read the Bible for long, right? So I'm jumping all the way down the Speaker's Corner to debate Muslims, to debate everybody there, and all I know is the basics of the New Testament. When I say basics, even my memory is not as great as it is now. Now, by the grace of God, it is because of His grace that I'm able to recall passages of Scripture in the way that I do. But that being said, I wasn't able to do that before, right? So yeah, this is going to be the start of it, of me going there. Let me just show you this on screen. This is just an advert. My
Are we a
bad.
pronoun? Or as if? No chance and not interested?
This is for Rob and me.
Yeah, whatever. So now I was shaking. Obviously, it's cold. And now people have told me, why are you shaking? That's been one of the most prominent things of the last few years. And it's because, one, I have PTSD, and I've made it very clear over the last few years. Crowds are not good for me. And I realise that now. In the past, I would have been a bit more, a bit less mature and a bit less, a bit more prideful to say, oh, well, it's because of crowds, it's because of people. But yeah, it's, my body has that fight or flight response that if I'm in a crowd, my fight or flight response will start kicking in immediately. It doesn't matter what or who the crowd is full of. It could be full of people who are not my enemy. It just so happens that I end up, shaking, and I end up extremely nervous. And I want to say that is an affectation of, struggles that I had in my personal life. But it's also something where, even though I felt like that, I'm telling you that it wasn't due to any form of wanting fear or any sort of, fear on my part in terms of who I'm around and where I'm going. That was not the thing that was problematic for me. Let me just check the messages. Do Chinese people get the N-word pass? Jellyfish says. I don't think anybody does. I don't even think black people do. I think it's something that should just stop being used. Or if it's going to be used by the black community, then everybody gets an N-word pass. Because why then are we assuming that it cannot be used as a word? Or why are we being offended when others do it, but when we do it, it's fine? That's hypocrisy, and we need to strive to remove ourselves from that. But at the same time, how I see it is, bro, it's just a word. It means nothing. When people use it, and how people are using it is important. But again, people use words all the time. People can be generally nasty and offensive. You need to be able to deal with that.
So basically, the explanation I've got is.
So this is me younger, earlier on, right? I remember this jacket, actually, nice jacket. This hoodie, boy, it's not going to fit me. But but you can see right there, actually, if I could show you this, if you can see on the screen, I'm wearing a bandana. Why? Because during lockdown, when the country was completely taken over and Boris was on some insane nonsense, during lockdown, people were told that they had to distance themselves if they went out, and if you went on public transport, you had to wear some sort of face mask. And so I just wore a bandana because I wasn't taking any of the nonsense that people had to say. Now, the phone I've got in my hand, it was a crap phone. It ended up breaking after a month. So really crap. But, this whole conversation is regarding the Trinity. And I remember seeing Bob. I remember seeing what he was doing. And I remember I agreed with some of the stuff he was doing, which I did. I agreed with his talks, especially against ethno-nationalists, but again, against Muslims as well. And I watch his stuff and I'll be like, okay, cool. So this is how it goes. And I remember thinking, I want to be on Circle Groups. I want to, engage in this platform. I want to work alongside these Christians, etc., etc. Because at this time, I knew nothing about ecumenism. I knew nothing about soteriology, theology, the background of how the Bible was composed, the Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox churches, and their innate ecclesialism and their heresies. I knew nothing. This is me at bog standard ground zero. Now, some people have told me, well, at this very point, would you have considered yourself to be a Christian? Yes. At this point, would you have been saved? Well, I would say that would be all glory to Christ. Because at this point, I unfortunately didn't know fully the soteriological precepts of the gospel, but I knew the gospel. And I sometimes have to think about this when I'm going to speak to those who are ecumenists. I don't want to be too bearing on them, because a lot of the theological conclusions I've come to have been due to years of study. And sometimes I don't realize it's been due to years of study and submission to God's word. But rather, I invite those who are younger in the faith, especially like I was, and young in general, like I was 25. I wasn't, an older man, I was 25, right? It's to really look into the faith a bit more, especially, biblically, right? Which is something I should have done. But, I wanted to go on for camera, so here we go.
Bill Qureshi's explanation, which is one in being and three in person. And being is that which makes you what you are. A person is that which makes you who you are.
Yeah.
And what I say is, what I am is human, and what my name is my person.
Well, I was nervous here. I mean, you're not going to catch me being nervous around Bob ever again. I think this is the only time you've got to see me being nervous around Bob. I was a bit starstruck. I was like, oh, well, this is the guy I see on that Soko thing. Now, this is really cool. But now it's like, this is the rat who's been cussing me out. And it's like, the change is different. I don't know. Looking back, it's weird. It's like another world. It's like I'm looking at another world. Behind him, by the way, is Abbas, who I've debated multiple times. Abbas is one of the more, I don't know. He's a more posh Muslim. He's a more, when I went to speaker school, there were roadman, and he definitely wasn't one of them. He was more of a, not the intellectual Muslim, but he was more respectful as a Muslim. He's talking to an individual by the name of Ben. Now, the background here is, especially in 2020, but even so in 2021, 2022, there was only really few evangelists at Speaker's Corner, or at least, when I say evangelists, I use it loosely now for Bob and others, but there was only few people defending colloquial Christianity at this time. There wasn't a lot of people. It would have been me, Ben Bill, Bob, Kay, and Hatun. Now, there were preachers, notably, of course, John Sherwood, and a guy called David, who was an anti-Catholic. I remember him going up there as well. But in the general sense, there was only really 5 who were willing, or 4, who were willing to get down and dirty with Muslims, who were the majority at Speaker's Corner at this moment in time. So I want you to bear in mind that, my fears of at least my innate anxiety when I was at Speaker's Corner was not unfounded. You're surrounded by people who could potentially kill you, and that sort of gets you into a mindset of, oh, I have to defend myself. And then your fight or flight kicks in. And, imagine that you've got PTSD. That heightens it to the point where it's very expressive. It's not just your stuttery word, but your whole body is like, I need to go, I need to go, I need to go. And it just burns this resources, because obviously fight or flight is, look, you either go or you either fight of this. And your adrenaline is pumping through your body. You're like, literally, I need to go, I need to go. I need to go. You learn this everything. Also, one thing I learned, let me just take this off. One thing I learned actually on the spiritual level, and this is where the Lord taught me this, is that when I am down there, if I'm not reading God's word, if I haven't, sought his counsel, and at this time I wasn't praying a lot either. I'd only just got into, of course, the Christian worldview, so it was really new for me. I would pray, but I would not be praying every day like I do now. If we're not equipped like that in the spiritual sense, we're not prepared. And so we're going there basically wounded, right? Especially if you don't read your Bible before going out to do evangelism. If you don't pray, if I don't pray every single day, I know there's consequences. If I'm not communicating with God, if I'm not inviting the Holy Spirit, there's consequences. That goes for every single Christian. And the one thing I didn't do, especially within the first 2 years of me being at Speaker's Corner, was, ardently seek the Lord as much as I do now, ardently read his word. Now, I was reading his word, but the reasons why I would read his word would be to deal with the polemics of Muslims that would attack me and critique me each week. And so I was like, okay, cool. I've lost that debate. Let me go back to the drawing board. And that's, of course, how you learn to do better apologetics/polemics. These words I didn't know at this time. Now, I'm 31, but, this is when I was 25. I'll show you a bit of this and then we'll go to more videos.
Person. So I'm trying to think, like, how would I be able to explain it fully? Because then I would be told, well, how did God become a child and suckle on Mary's breasts?
Well, I mean, these are obviously stupid arguments that Muslims utilize to try and confuse or co-mix the deity with the nature of the human. Obviously, we believe that God became a man. Obviously, we believe God became incarnate. But that means, of course, that God is in of course, his essence, experiencing the human nature. But he's not, of course, turning into a human. That's not what we would say of the nature of the deity of Christ, right? So these questions are easy to answer, right? The Trinity is the most attacked position at Speaker's Corner. And what I found out very early on is that majority of Muslims really only attack the Trinity. The Trinity is the only thing that's attacked, other than, of course, the moral side, and we'll get to that. But Trinitarian positions often attacked. Now, Bob is going to mention some sort of three-dimensional space as a sort of analogy of what the Trinity is, etc., etc. And whilst I feel like these analogies work, they just don't represent exactly what's going on within the triune nature of God. And I don't think anything can. Now, I'm not taking the apophatic stance in the sense that we can't know God, but what I am saying is nothing can perfectly describe the perfect being, right? And so really, taking a more Bible alone stance, especially a more sola scriptura stance, the historicity of the text is going to be important and how it's being utilized. And theologically speaking, we can say properly that God is one being, three in persons. And we don't really need to go into further elucidations, because all of those elucidations are just going to be what? They're just going to be basically, me explicating on something that I have no business doing. Obviously, because my faith is more grounded in God's word than ever before, I'd say. I don't really see these arguments as a problem. I wouldn't even ask Bob anything about this. This is a basic argument. Now, yeah, you can obviously see what's going on. We're having a conversation, talking about stuff. I am a lot skinnier. I was a lot skinnier at this time. I used to run a lot, especially from the ages of 24, right? I got into running. Well, I'd say running, it was jogging. So I started off slowly jogging. Unfortunately, I can't do any more because my leg gave way, right? I don't know whether I've got a joint problem. I do need to go to the hospital and sort it out. But yes, my legs have given way. But, in comparison to this dude on screen, who's obviously not skinnier, I would say, at this moment in time, I'm a lot more healthier. And, that may sound like a contradiction, but it's true. In the sense that, the kind of weight that I can lift, my man here couldn't. I know he couldn't because I was him. And let me tell you, 10 kg weights were hard for me to carry. No joke. I was very skinny. 10 kg is very 10 kg, Lord, loosen my tongue, is very light for me today. So yeah. But a lot of people say, oh, you used to be this, you used to be that. I'm like, yeah, but that was a different me. That wasn't me today. I am what I am. And by God's grace, yes, I am different. So yeah, you can see I did a few videos. The main one was Mr. Rax. Now, here's an interesting one where I start questioning ecumenism. Now, I was at the beginning stages, so a lot of the argumentation that Bob was making to counteract, I wasn't able to deal with. Now, by the grace of God, I will destroy Bob in a debate, but he doesn't want to debate me, so it's what it is. But, what I mean? I'm not even trying to be arrogant. It's just true. Or, what I mean? But yeah, there's this whole discussion we're having, and I'll let you watch it. regarding what he's calling sectarianism. Now, he first didn't use the term sectarianism of me. He used it actually of anybody who disagrees with his opinion. But we'll get with this hypocrite's arguments in a bit.
You know, people who are talking such rubbish are not doing themselves any favours. They are harming.
Now, by the way, I've asked him about, you know, those who are Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox going against those who are, quote, Christians in the colloquial sense. Obviously, at this time, I am an ecumenist, and it's sad to see. But, you know, that yellow bag thing, that's banging, actually. I remember having that. I think I lost it.
The body of Christ. As Christians, we got more things to fight about. You know that, I know that. So when you encounter someone who's very sectarian and wants to draw you into sectarian arguments,
it's just ironic. I don't know what to tell you. It's just let me show it on screen. Sorry, I my apologies. I didn't show this on screen. That's my apologies. But yeah, so it's just ironic. Because he will go on to call me a sectarian, like just not even like 2 or 3 years after this is filmed. So it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of funny. But
the best thing to do for your soul is to rise above it. That is the best thing for you.
So he's giving me all this spill, I mean, and nonsense that, you know, is irrelevant. Let me just go back, actually, because I want to play this for you so you can see it. Let me extend this, and hopefully it should show on screen.
Any favors.
Does heaven have a gate? I don't know.
Body of Christ. As Christians, we got more things to fight about. You know that, I know that. So when you...
I mean, no. When it comes to the gospel is going to be primary in our discussions about what Christianity is. I mean, there is nothing else that's primary. For it's either that the soul goes to hell because they didn't accept Christ and his gospel, or the soul doesn't, and your position is true. Right? So, you know, your universalist presuppositions do not work here. But the thing is, I'm just learning this stuff. I don't know what's going on with my hair, man. I don't know what that is, bro. If I could go back, I'll look at my hair and say, listen, go home, bro. What's going on with this? I know what I was trying to do, but my dreads are too thick for that, and I just don't. I don't like it. I don't like it, and I'm still wearing that jacket. I think that's the only jacket that I was wearing for some time. It's kind of interesting.
Encounter someone who's very sectarian and wants to draw you into sectarian arguments. The best thing to do for your soul is to rise above it. That is the best thing for you to do.
And by the way, to this day, he's still saying this stuff. He's still promulgating this idea that, oh, if you encounter anybody who you know professes the gospel and shares it with Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox, i.e. sectarians, if you encounter anybody who does that, then just ignore them and move on with your day and refuse to discuss because you don't have an argument.
Because remember, it's a commandment of our Lord that we love one another. Yeah. Sectarianism amongst Christians is not Christians loving one another.
No, again, the assumption's going to be from Bob that Christians are sectarian because Christians decide to call out those who are Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox who are not Christian. So what's going to be prior, the presupposition of this whole discussion, what's going to be a priority to discussion is what is Christian in the first place. It's not going to be, oh, well, we can just assume that people are Christians. And that's what they do. That's what ecumenists have been doing for centuries now, assuming that if somebody calls themselves a Christian and believes in the Trinity, they are Christians without any sort of instantiation or backup for their claims. Right? And that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing, right? So when he says, oh, no, it wouldn't be loving your neighbor. No, it would be loving your neighbor. To have discussions about the gospel and to lead Catholics and Eastern Orthodox to the truth of the gospel, that would definitely be loving your neighbor. What you're doing is not loving your neighbor, Bob. Remember that.
Christians failing to love.
I believe they manipulate the tradition to do.
By the way, this is I've just noticed this is some sort of Anglican LGBTQ argument. Oh, you're not loving your neighbor if you're not supporting the heresy. It's a bunch of crap, bro. I can't stand listening to this guy. It's just like it's like, you know what I mean? It's a lot of people looking at it like, oh, student versus master, but in the end, that this guy is just absolutely nasty with his presuppositions. I would wreck him in a debate, and he knows it. He knows it. It's just an embarrassment. You know, the only reason why I haven't really approached Bob is because I just don't take him seriously anymore. I just don't. But, you know, the Bobites, especially the ecumenists who are on this side, are still running for me. That shows everybody, and I've already shown the world that ultimately Ecumenists have no arguments. None of them.
The traditions to a point where they believe that because they are the Orthodox Church and that we're outside.
What was I doing here? So what was I doing there? What was I doing there? Okay, go ahead.
Basically, Christ, when he talks to the church, is basically speaking to him and his book, and he's not interested in what I am.
Oh, right, he's not speaking about Roman Catholics or Eastern Orthodox. So like no. So when Jesus speaks to the church, he's speaking of the church that's identical to what we're seeing in the Bible. We're speaking about those who aren't anathema. So we're speaking about those who have understood and accepted the gospel of saving grace. He's not speaking to the Roman Catholic or Eastern Orthodox because one, they didn't exist, and two, they're heretics. So in fact, what would be closer to who he's speaking to, especially when it comes to Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholics, what would be closer to speaking to them would be John chapter 8 verse 44. Right? So when you read that, you'll find Jesus Christ saying, "You're of your father Satan." That's him speaking to the Roman Catholics, bro. And I don't know what this is, bro. Anyway, let's continue, man. And let me just make sure my face is there so you can see two ugly mugs for the price of one. My bad.
Even though Christ himself said, "Therefore, I'll baptize all nations in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit."
It's Christ.
I don't know what arguments I was making. Sorry, Matthew 28 verses 19 has nothing to do with the presupposition of a Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox Church. I really don't know what that was. I was trying my best to formulate an argument. Because I had an issue at Speaker's Corner, especially with Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox coming up to me and saying things like, "Oh, well, you're not part of the real church. You're not part of the true church. You just need to learn a bit more. Bob has been lying to you," which, of course, he was lying to me, but he wasn't lying in a sense about the Catholic Church. He's lying in a sense, but he wasn't hiding the Catholic Church's positions. He knows what they are. And so do many of these Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholics. They are aware of the position of the Roman Catholic Church. Let me just turn that off. So yeah, look, I don't know what I was going to speak about.
It's not about. But I would say it's not about. It's not about Christ being interested in what we've got to say. It's about us being interested in what Christ has to say. And the closer we draw to Christ's teaching, the closer we draw towards one another. The thing about sectarianism.
Well, if you take that position, Bob, then Christ taught the apostles. And according to Galatians chapter 1, verses 8 to 9, if anybody has another gospel, let them be accursed. According to Peter's first epistle, we are told to avoid those who are ravenous dogs and wolves who have come into the church to mislead the flock. Was that not Christ's teaching, Bob? Because I'm pretty sure it was. You don't get to pick and choose what Christ's teaching is and what isn't. Right? We find in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 14 that the apostle Paul said of himself that he's inspired by God. And in first Peter, I think it's chapter 1 or chapter 2, Peter says Paul's letters are inspired. Right? So you can't just pick and choose. You can't have a pick and mix theology. And that was the issue that I started to have with Bob, is that when I was listening to him, I heard more and more of this pick and mix theology. And I was like, well, this is just not making any sense when it comes to scripture. And so, even when I was in this position, and I hope this sort of encourages those who may be ecumenists still who follow Bob, even when I was an ecumenist, and even when, I and Bob were at our closest, I didn't have a problem with him at this moment in time. I was still going back to scripture, and I was reading it and being like, is Bob correct here? And no, he's not correct here. Let's continue on and then we'll
is that what that does is it puts up barriers between the church uniting, between the church joining.
Again, assumption of what the church is, assumption of how the church operates, assumptions that those who are Christians are those who are Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox. No argument to predicate or to ground the statement, so folly basis.
Together.
Yeah, I agree.
So the thing is, you've got a responsibility for your own soul. So when you encounter that kind of
Oh no, Christ does, right? So Christ is the savior of our souls. He's the just and the justifier of the one who believes in him. Romans chapter 3. It is Christ who is the one who sanctifies our souls. Hebrews chapter 2. So, Christ is responsible for our souls because he's redeemed us. And at this moment in time, I did not know that. But knowing that has given me so much peace, which is a peace I didn't have before. And so I was left, basically having to engage with people who are false Christians and false sheep in wolf's clothing. Right? But that's what I had to deal with, right? So if you're looking at this, look at it as some sort of crash course for what not to do in this situation and maybe avoid it.
Tarianism, you have to elevate your soul out of that.
But how do I respond to people who believe that there's only one way to translate the scriptures, and that's either through the Catholic Church or through the Orthodox?
Again, this is the problem with especially younger Christians, is that they oftentimes come with the baggage of their subjectivist reasoning, and that comes out of the curriculum, that comes out of primary and secondary school, that comes out of a very subjectivist mindset. There isn't one way to translate a text, and no, there is. There is one way to translate a text, and God can speak, and he has spoken through his words. In order for human beings to communicate properly, we need to understand that there are some grounding for words and how we are utilizing them. In order for you to understand what I'm saying, you need to understand the basic precepts of language and the way I'm using it, right? And the context in which I'm using it in, right? And so, saying that we just can't understand the words of Scripture is a null and void argument. We can know what Scripture says. God says that we can. In fact, he says in Isaiah chapter 8, verse 20, to the law and to the testimony, if they do not have this law within them, if they do not believe in this word, do not hear this word, they do not have any light in them. So it isn't that these other presuppositions of false Christians or these other false religious leaders simply aren't locking in enough. No, it's that they don't want to. They don't want to embrace Christ's gospel. That's the truth.
There is no other way to try. Even though that we have the canon, and the earliest church, even the earliest church fathers speak of the canon itself, they don't. But the early church will try and say, well, no, they were speaking of it from this point of view.
Yeah, so the canon argument was utilized with me earlier on, and I didn't really have an argument against it. So I was just thinking through the canon argument. And, one of my get out clauses was like, we're all Christian. But that's not how you deal with the canon argument. You just look in history. That's why I did the study I did. Because people have asked me, why, how are you so intelligent? This and that. It's like, well, yeah, because I've been, bulleted with tons of arguments. And I was just like, okay, I'm going home and I'm studying it. So, yeah.
The only way to interpret the canon of the scriptures is through the lens of a Catholic or Orthodox. It's like, no.
Well, it's not even just a Catholic or Orthodox. Even
okay, that's brilliant. And this is where I start questioning, and this is very correct. I think for the entirety of this conversation, I actually said something that was true. You don't interpret. It's not even just you can't. It's you don't interpret the Bible through the lens of the Catholic and Eastern Orthodox Church, but through the authorial intent therein. We don't interpret it through the lens of the magisterium or the papacy, because the papacy and the magisterium are faulty men who are corrupt. No, we interpret it through the light of the consistency therein, the hermeneutic context within, and of course the authorial intent, how, of course, the author is displaying these texts. And we can do that with language. Language itself has authorial intent, right? Nobody reads Harry Potter and then just comes to the conclusion that, Harry Potter was a girl from Cheshire who rode on a horse. It's like, no, obviously there's context. But anyway, yeah, so that was around 2020, right? But even then, and I'm actually proud of that, actually, because I actually thought, going back, that I wasn't, I was more ecumenical, but I actually wasn't. I actually wasn't as ecumenical as I thought I was. I was actually questioning. And yeah, questioning is a good thing. And if you're not questioning enough, you need to start questioning stuff. I've had younger Christians, who are like 19, 20, 21. They would come up to me in the park privately and ask me about this or that question regarding the canon, regarding this or that. And, I always encourage them, go back to the Word of God, see what Scripture has to say. In regards to the canon, look at the history of it. It's not harmful to do so, rather than just trusting in the very lazy reasoning of the ecumenical dogs. Now, I think Bob was around my age at this time. I think he was. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, but that's the reasoning, right? So you know, as you can see, then it became, you know, debating Muslims, especially around 2021, right? There was one time where it went too far. I'm not going to show all the videos. It was a different time. Oh, there's Ralph. Now, you know, this, I actually want to show this because this was cringe. So this is what not to do in a debate with Ali Dawah. Like, I don't like playing it, but I just have to put myself through it. So, you know, I think this would have been around 2020. No, it was 2020. Yeah, a lot happened in 2020, by the way. But yeah, remember, I've only been a Christian at this moment in time for less than a few months, right? So I became Christian around January 2020. This is September. This is filmed September the 6th. And I know it was filmed September the 6th because I remember watching this when it first came out. So, I mean, yeah, you know, around this time, I've only, had, you know, less than a year of being a Christian. And that means less than a year of reading the Bible, less than a year of praying. At this moment in time, I'm not baptized. I wasn't baptized until 2022. You know, so this is early days, right? And I was like, boom, I'm jumping into the debate Ali Dawah. Because, you know, with me, I don't run. If anybody knows one thing about me, all right, you know, I'm not really cowardly when it comes to debating people. I'll debate anybody. I'll literally just walk. You know, if so, like people told me, especially in the atheist side, oh, go and debate Ali Dawah. I mean, like, sorry, not Ali Dawah. Go and debate, you know, Richard Dawkins. I'll debate him any given Sunday. Go and debate Alex O'Connor. Bring him here and I'll debate him. That's how I am. I'm not really worried about debating people. Because, you know, there's a part of me which is basically inherently sadistic, which is like, you know, even if I lose the debate, I will make arguments to win. That kind of thirst that I had, I still have it. And it was a thirst that I had with Ali Dawah. I was like, look, I'm jumping in. Because, you know, for me, defending Christ is what it was about. I didn't care about what I knew and what I didn't know. I didn't care about what he was going to bring. I didn't even know what he was going to bring. Or what argumentation he was going to bring. I just knew one thing. I'm jumping in. That's not always a good idea, and I would suggest people actually learn before they go through this corner. But hey ho, you know. So yeah. Anyway, some people sent me some messages. I'll just read them out. Somebody said Bobism. Yes, jellyfish. Yeah, it is Bobism. It's the cult and religion of Bob, and unfortunately, I was a part of it until I left. I became born again. Amen. Prophet Epstein, peace. Yeah, okay, cool. I don't know what that's about. Acts 13:23 out of Yisrael, a savior, Yahuwah. Okay, Raphael, what are you talking about? Sorry, is that supposed to be an argument? Yeah, how you doing, man? How you doing, Carlton? How you doing? God bless you. Yeah, let's just jump into this. This is actually quite interesting. I don't want to subject myself to this. It was embarrassment, and yes, I'll admit. Look, you know, I lost this debate, but I didn't lose it on substance. I mean, I feel as if because I've watched it in the past. I haven't watched it for a while. Didn't lose on substance, but rather apologetics has its place, but not when dealing with Dawah dogs. You should really just be on polemics, right? And if you want to two-quote them, do it all the time. Because at the end of the day, like, who cares? They're dogs. But the thing is, I didn't know that. It's only been, a few months since I've become a Christian. I was an atheist prior to that. So, I mean, come on. Give us some slack.
For the Israelites, Ali, not for me. I'm trying to be as calm as I can with you. You're not being honest. You're not being consistent. My faith does not.
I didn't really look at people when I'm talking to them because of anger. But I mean, yeah, Ali just peed me off. He came up to me with the worst kind of argumentation. And I knew it was bad inherently, but yeah. My attitude here, I don't know.
Not rely upon the Old Testament, the Old Covenant or the Old Testament. My faith relies solely on the New Testament and the New Covenant.
Shooting Tip says the canon utilized by Protz was formulated by Christians who believed in teaching similar to Catholics. No, that's an assumption. So first of all, for the first 400 years of the church, and this is just not my opinion, this is the opinion of scholars like, for example, Richard Price. He's a Roman Catholic scholar. For the first 400 years of the church was iconoclastic. And you can actually see that, right? When you read the likes of Tertullian, who obviously you don't accept, I don't care. Tertullian is a witness of the early church. And what he says is that, you know, the practice of bowing down and venerating images is perverse, right? He actually critiques the practices of a church that exists during his time of making images and placing them on the chalice or the communion chalice, right? And he says this is a perverse act. He has a whole book on idolatry where he just basically chastens the idea of those who believe it's okay to depict imagery in the church. Another example is you know, the Council of Laodicea, right? So, the Council of Elvira. What am I talking about? The Council of Elvira in 309 condemns images being shown in the churches, in one of her canons, and it says there, in case anybody worships them. And then you have Epiphanius in his letter to King John, and Epiphanius says, quote, that he had seen an image in Anablatha. It's Anablatha was some area in the Mediterranean. He had seen this image of something, you know, akin to Christ or one of the saints. He doesn't know. He ripped it down and he gave it as a winding sheet for a poor person. Origen again goes against idolatry, goes against iconography being used as in veneration of churches against Celsus, right? So in many of the literature, I would say majority of the literature, in fact, we're finding from the time of the post-apostolic remit, pre-Nicene, you're finding this idea that iconography is something which is despised. It's only until you get to later councils and later church fathers like John of Damascus, and especially the likes of the Council of Nicaea II and other councils as well, that you're starting to see this sort of move of iconodulia, or more of the acceptance of icons being used in worship and reverence. So when you do an historical study of the history of the church, you do not see this. You do not see that the practices of these church fathers were similar to these individuals. You can find some practices that have some form of similarity, but I would say that ripped out of context, you can find similarity for any position you want. I'll give you an example. I spoke to this Muslim, I call it Muslim, but she's a Unitarian Christian, by the name of Halal Christian. And I've, of course, witnessed her stuff before. And she has said multiple times that the church fathers for the first 400 years are in fact Unitarian. And she would point out various texts of literature that appear to show either a contradiction between the idea of the Trinity or at least some sort of contradiction in language used. So, for example, Justin Martyr says there are two beings who are called God. Or you've got very obscure texts in Tertullian mentioning some sort of subordination of the Son to the Father. So, it really is not as simple as they were Catholic or Eastern Orthodox. They were not. The Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches are existing due to the socio-economic, socio-political events that occur post-10th century. Now, don't get me wrong. Pre-10th century, we are definitely seeing affirmation of iconography, especially within the 8th or 9th century, the Council of Trullo, for example, and the Council of Nicaea too. But what we're not seeing is, for the first 400, 500 years of the church, a fully ecclesiological system that relies heavily upon the papacy as being the definite head of the church and Peter as primate of the entire church. We are not seeing the Marian dogmas as they are instantiated according to the Council of Trent. The Council of Trent being from around the 15th century. We're not seeing the ano-iconoclasm or the iconodulia or the acceptance of icons. We are not seeing that for the first 400 years of the church en masse and consistently taught as dogmatic. So we're not seeing the Greek church holding any reverence that is beyond that of the other churches. We're not seeing the Roman church held in any reverence that is beyond that of the other churches. Rather, we're seeing Roman bishops, the Roman bishop himself, fall into heresy. Like, for example, the Roman Pope, whose name I've forgotten, Pope Liberius, who around the Council of Nicaea essentially defects from the faith and starts believing in Arianism. So history is very weird and very clumpy when it comes to church fathers. I would advise Catholics to stop using history as an argument. It doesn't work for you. It really doesn't. because you're interpreting it through a lens, and what that lens is going to be, well, the church says so. But who cares about whether the church says so or not? What's at contention is whether the church is true, or whether or not you can actually get into these texts and actually elucidate whether or not they're saying what you're saying. Okay, they weren't considered to be heretics, so that defutes your claim. They were not considered to be heretics. The only time in history where we've seen an ecumenical council called clearly deferring to those who are, iconoclastic as heretics is going to be in the 8th century Council of Nicaea. So you have 800 years of people not being called heretics for denying iconography in the church. Deal with it. I quoted tons of councils. And you can just go and read them. But I know you haven't read them because you just told me I need to quote them. Those who've read the councils are able to give me an argument as to how those councils are working. But you don't even know what those councils are. Maybe you should do what your name suggests and remain a student, because you are no way ready for any sort of argumentation for your side, whether you're an Eastern Orthodox or Roman Catholic, my friend. Ecclesialism is not something that's found in the early church, from what your position holds to. Right? So sure, you can find, I'll give you an example of heretics that believe in the same things you do in the early church. So the Arians, for example, Athanasius of Alexandria writes a letter to the Catholics. He's not speaking about the Roman Catholics. He's speaking about the universal church. He writes a letter and he says, not the apostolic places, but the apostolic faith. And he's responding to people like yourself who say, well, we have apostolic succession. We have apostolic succession from the early church. That's a citation you can go and look up right now, the letter to the Catholics. And, he's saying, look, we have the apostolic faith. And what he's saying is there are churches being built up in his day, in the 4th century AD, that have more consistency and more doctrinal orthodoxy than the churches being built up in the 1st century during the time of the apostles. Now, you would have to disagree with Athanasius. And yet Athanasius is going to be the champion of the Council of Nicaea, which you have to hold to as authoritative. All of this stuff, by the way, came from me being honest with reading the texts. Not from butchering, not from reading out of context like every single Catholics do, but just reading it. You didn't quote me anything. You didn't quote me anything. But you're talking about quoting ecumenical councils to support iconoclasm. If that's your standard, then here you go. Here's one, the Council of Hiera. So according to the Council of Hiera, and I could show you this on screen, and then we'll get back to the video. The Council of Hiera, in the 7th century, or at least the 8th century, condemns the act of iconography in the church. Now, you're going to say this is heretical, but I don't care. It's a council. You told me to produce an ecumenical council, so here's an ecumenical council. Because I noticed that their goals always shift anyway. They just like to shift the goalpost every time we get them on something because they don't read. So let's show you. Let's just expose how little you know. Let's go here. So this is the Council of Hiera. The Council of Hiera was a Christian council of 754, which viewed itself as an ecumenical, but was later rejected by the Second Council of Nicaea by Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches. Since none of the 5 major patriarchs participated, however, it is preferred over Second Nicaea by some Protestants. The council was significant in the controversy of Byzantine iconoclasm, condemning veneration and production of religious icons. Now, if you read the canons of the Council of Hiera, which, I'll be able to get up. If you read those canons, what they say is that anybody bows down to an icon, they're anathema. So you asked for an ecumenical council, we got the ecumenical council. Are you going to submit to Christ or not? I don't know what to say. Because if that's your standard, then evidently you should be an iconoclast. That was your standard. That's what you wanted. Or are you going to change the goalpost again so I can get you out of it? Which one? I'm waiting for him to respond. Because obviously big man here thinks he knows stuff. Exactly. Your silence is your consent. And this is the truth of the disingenuousness of these people. They are not Christians. I keep saying this, and I'm not going to stop saying it. They are disingenuous liars and dogs of Satan. Where's my mod? What's going on with this, man? Yeah. What's going on with my mods, bro? Let me get rid of that. Don't know why he's coming here and just cussing, bro. Get lost. So what I would advise you to do, student clips, is be quiet when your elders are speaking, yeah? You know, I've done this for the last I've done this for the last 7 years, right? There's no argument you're going to bring that's going to confirm the Catholic or Eastern Orthodox churches is true. They're both false, inherently. And there's no proof you're going to give. Not on this channel. Maybe on Bob's channel, sure, people who don't know anything about the history of the church and don't know anything about the church fathers and don't know anything about the Bible, maybe them, but yeah. Okay, yeah, and notice what he did. He did what I said he was going to do. You see, I said he would deny it as heretical. Why? Because his church doesn't accept it. Why? Because he assumes his church is true without actually proving it. So it's circular reasoning. It's like an atheist saying God doesn't exist because God doesn't exist. That's not an argument. Council of Hierera not being one of the 7 ecumenical councils, according to who? Who is the one who determines what's an ecumenical council and what's not? Who determines that? And if you ever read, which I know you haven't, but if you ever bothered to read the likes of Callistus Ware, who was a Eastern Orthodox metropolitan, he's passed away now. He essentially was a Eastern Orthodox patriarch or metropolitan of some kind, and he writes a book called The Orthodox Church or The Orthodox Way. And what he says is, even admitting in the book, he says, well, the reason why the Eastern Orthodox Church rejects the 7th Ecumenical Council is because it rejects it. That's his claim. That's it. Because the whole identity of the church is that we are the first church. That's it. And it's only claimed. It's not proven. So the ecumenicalists who follows these ideologies is only burying themselves when it comes to real and actual discourse. And so the same thing with the Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches. But I mean, look, you don't have to even affirm or deny the Council of Nicaea for it to be false. Because the early church fathers, and by extension, even the apostles rejected such a council. So what did the apostles say gets you to eternal life? What did the apostles say gets you to salvation? Believing in the gospel. Paul says in Galatians 1:8-9, if anybody has another gospel, let them be anathema. I'm going to get rid of student because he's not answering any questions. And he obviously doesn't have a brain. So yeah. Sorry, what? Let's continue on. So I've removed student clips because obviously he's too dumb to listen to anything. And this is the problem. When a lot of people get ballsy and get brave and they don't understand the arguments they're making, first of all, this is not an argument. This doesn't attack the position of the Council of Hierera. When I ask you what, in fact, makes a church, ecumenical authority church, or a church ecumenical and having authority, and you assume that the church's bishops and patriarchs have binding authority, that doesn't tell me anything. Also, there are councils that you accept, like the Council of Nicaea II, that were based upon imperial authorities, much like the Council of Nicaea I. And what about the Council of Nicaea II? that was predicated upon an imperial authority. So again, these people make stupid arguments without any logic. No logic, bro. And this is what I tell you, they're inconsistent morons, bro. And they should be treated with nothing but discontent, because they are abhorrent to Christ and they just don't like his word. That's the truth. So people think I've come up with this position out of thin air, that I essentially made up this position and it didn't exist. No, this position is clearly known. We cited over and over again councils, and even to the point where he said, show me a council. And I did show him an ecumenical council. Then he had to decide to class the council's heretic because he denies the truth of all things for the sake of his idolatry. That's the truth of the ecumenists, and that's the truth of the Roman Catholic Eastern Orthodox Church. They are all disingenuous. Anyway, let's continue on.
That is with Christ, in Christ's blood, according to Luke 22.
Okay, alright, so I'm
So
asking a
if
question.
you go to the Old Testament, I'm just going to tell you the same thing, because none of that matters to me. It's not for me, it's for those people at that time, given at that time.
Yeah, so I get the argument that obviously, because I made it. Obviously, for Ali Dawah, because he's a disingenuous moron, like most of these people who are heretics, he's just going to keep denying the truth of Christ's words. And so saying to him that, the Old Testament has a covenantal theology, and that there's a difference between the Old Testament covenant, which clearly relates to an Israelite people that, didn't wear mixed fabrics, wore, a specific type of clothing, especially during the Levitical priesthood, had to sacrifice animals, that we don't do that today. Making that differentiation is important, but more important is understanding, well, no, if you're going to attack the idea that there is some sort of form of what you perceive to be rape and murder and child rape in the Old Testament, that we can just point to the Quran and Hadith and we can find those things there. So, for example, Surah 65 verses 4. It's clear, there's a clear injunction in chapter 65 verses 4 of the Quran that you must wait 3 weeks. 3 days. Well, the waiting period of Iddah, which is the period in which you are to divorce somebody, is 3 months of Iddah waiting, right? And according to most of the jurisprudence on those texts, whether it be Al-Jalalain, who is a tafsir writer, or or Ibn Abbas or Ibn Kathir, right? All of them are saying that the waiting period would be 3 months, whether you are a child, whether you're an adult, or whether you're pregnant. And so according to how early Islamic expositors viewed Surah 65 verses 4, they viewed that as a waiting period for the divorcing of a child. So Ali is in no position to say anything about the Bible until he deals with that. And obviously, when you're dealing with a Muslim like this, they're not going to deal with that. They're going to assume and jump. That's it. So you're going to end up shouting past them, talking past them, and wasting your damn time. Now, had I known this, it would have been an easy debate. But I didn't know this at the time. So yeah.
Turn those people, our barbaric nation, into a better nation.
By killing men, women, children, donkeys, and babies.
Yeah, so he's quoting 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 3. Which again, yeah, God commissioned the killing of males, women, females, and donkeys. What's wrong with that? Your God did it in the Quran. So when you cause a worldwide flood and butcher women, children, donkeys, animals, elephants, is that not a problem for this person? So that's what your God did. That's exactly what your God did. So, bear that in mind. Also, that's what Muhammad did, right? So we got the example of the night raid, where Muhammad's men basically attack and kill women and children. And, Muhammad doesn't respond with, you shouldn't have done that, you stupid guys, and had them killed. But rather he responds with, they are from them, referring to the polytheists, meaning that essentially, what's there to worry about? They're from them. They are literally polytheists. It doesn't matter. Because what were Muhammad's men doing? They were saying, look, we killed women and children. What are we going to do? And he just said, they are from them. That's all within the text. Now, to this day, and this is why I just don't debate Muslims anymore, because it's just boring. To this day, they're just like, no, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. It's like, waste of time. We know it says that. They can say what they want. We know it says that. So if you're gonna keep denying it, then you know there's disingenuousness on your part. I want to talk to you. No conversation we had. Now this is another reason why I don't debate Dai because I just find them boring. Just find them boring. There's nothing to debate. Okay, let's continue.
Take it 1 7 So what happened before that? No, but did that happen? Yes, it happened. What's happened before?
He literally is rage baiting me. I don't know why I'm letting him rage bait me. This is true.
Okay, let's go to Surah 99. Yeah? Say that. Okay, let's go to Surah 99. When in Surah 99 it says, fight the unbelievers. What's the context? They don't have a civilization.
So I'm doing a contextual argument related to Surah 929 or chapter 929 of the Quran, or chapter 9 verses 29. Right? Now, yes, chapter 9 verses 29 says, fight the unbelievers wherever you find them until they feel themselves subdued and pay the jizya, right? Now, out of context, of course, that is a violent and bloody verse. And if the Muslim I'm speaking to does not apply the context of the verse in the Quran into that verse, then it could be utilized for terrorism. Now, you know, that being said, this is the first time in this conversation that I'm using polemics. So, I mean, again, it's only been, a few months as a Christian at this moment in time, so cut me some slack. But, you know, what's more problematic about what Surah 929 is the fact that you don't get any sort of hadith on this until 200 years later. So any interpretation you bring is irrelevant. You know, you have to prove that your interpretation is true, and Ali doesn't do that. Let's continue.
Yeah, that's all right. That'd be good. Like he's moving.
Let me just skip it.
I would simply use the term she's waiting for it to be bigger. You can construe bigger how you want, but the term I meant was she was 9 years old. Bigger, it does not mean in the way that you think it means. It meant for me that I was saying that she's waiting until. No, he was waiting until she gets to a point where she's big enough to put his fingers in. That's what.
Yeah, okay. Why did I say that? Why did I say that? Oh no. Oh no. Come on, bro. Hey, Just how you doing? God bless you, man. Oh no, why did I say that? Man, actually I just hold back and said the D word, bro. I think it's because, obviously, again, I've got PTSD and I was a bit hyped. And I just said, yeah, like, you know. So I was making the, Aisha was 9 argument. You've heard of it, right? Sahih Bukhari 5134 says that Muhammad had married Aisha, who was a 6-year-old girl at the time, at the age of 6, and then consummated his marriage with Aisha at the age of 9 years old. And my argument was just simply this. There is obviously a moral fault here between the character of Muhammad as the final and best example for mankind and his copulation with a 9-year-old girl. This argument has been done ad infinitum, and I've even made allusions that Jimmy Savile was their prophet. We've gone through all of that. Now, here's where the argument does not work, right? One thing that I learned is that the people you are dealing with have a different paradigm as to what morality is. It's why I do presuppositional apologetics with atheists now more than I did in the past, because I wasn't aware of presuppositional apologetics. But the wonder of presuppositional apologetics is actually deals with what the underlying presupposition is going to be when you're talking to, let's say, X or Y, right? And so when you're talking to a Muslim, the underlying presupposition is that this man is morally perfect. And so it doesn't matter what you say to these people, it's going to be this man is morally perfect. Now, whether they view Muhammad's actions as credible or not, some will even deny it. Some will say the hadith is lies. Some would even go as far as to say we only use the Quran, or that the hadith is corrupt. Right? Whether that be the case or not, we're still dealing with what is supposed to be an attributed narrative of Muhammad sleeping with a 9-year-old girl. Right? And the question's then got to be, well, in your paradigm, is it wrong? And I would later in my debate with Muhammad Hijab, in 2022, which is 2 years after this, actually note that yes, the narrative that Aisha was a woman is incorrect, because according to hadith, the same sort of system used in, I think it's Sahih Muslim or Riyad Sal Ali, I've not read it in a while, Riyad al Salihin, right? around, those narratives of hadiths, you actually find in the hadith that says that children younger than 15 cannot go to war. And so then I sort of made the argument to Muhammad Hijab, which we'll see, I'll show you it, that essentially Aisha must have been a child because according to the hadith author, it was the general understanding and sense of the time that a child was younger than the age of 15. And so you can't then say, well, they were women back at this time. Like, no. Because if that was the case, then the author of the hadith would have said so. That's if the hadith itself is credible and not lies. And you could go further and say, well, if you're going to deny Sahih Bukhari 5134, then also deny every single hadith within the corpus and deny hadith and become Quran only. But if you do that, you can't make sense of the Quran, so it becomes really basis. Yeah, sorry, my bad. So you're sort of starting to see that, right? You're starting to see that, these the level of argumentation being used by these people is just full on disingenuous. But again, I just find my movements to be funny. I don't know what this. 1 minute. Yeah, so let me just watch a bit more of this, and then we'll go to Muhammad Hijab.
So you lied about.
I still think about the Muhammad Hijab debate because that was flipping funny. He literally rage quitted at the end and threatened to call my mum and threatened to fight me in an MMA match. Weird times, but let's go.
And even when you first uploaded this video, Ali, and I noticed it, you said that I justified rape in the Bible. That's what you said, and then you corrected it. So I'm glad you at least saw that. You changed the title from Guy admits there's rape in the Bible.
Why am I stuttering, bro? What's going on?
You changed that to Guy messes up. So you changed it.
No, but the reason I changed it is not because. The reason I changed it is not because I was lying. It's because I believe the title would be a bit more catchy. That's
really, you see, like he's a disingenuous little camel. Oh, I changed the title because it would be a bit catchy, right? Because that's what he was trying to do the whole time. And it wasn't about him being honest. Dawa Gandhis cannot be honest, right? Amy, can you not play downstairs? Yeah, because I'm on live in it, so then you're gonna play his crazy voice. So anyway, yeah, let's continue.
No. Because the thing is, when I showed you in the book of Zechariah, right? The book of I think it's chapter Zechariah. So when it's ordered, for example, let's establish something. Yeah? Do you believe that Jesus is God?
Yes.
Okay. So therefore, Jesus is God always.
Yes, he always has been.
He always has been. Okay. Yes. So is Jesus the same God that's stipulated in the Old Testament, in the book of Samuel, chapter 15, verse 2 to 3, to go to the Amalekites? Yes, we agree they were very bad people. They do really bad stuff, worshipping other idols. Yeah.
No, not only that, they sacrificed their own children to a god named Molech. Basically, what they would do is
Yeah, so I was given the defense, but it's the standard defense, of course. 1 Samuel 15 verses 3 is God's vengeance upon the Amalekite people because of their attacking Israel. First of all, Exodus 17, they mercilessly attack Israel while they are, unawares, and God promises to protect Israel. Also, corporal genocide is something that's always done within nation Near Eastern cultures, right? And so the Canaanites did it when they tried to wipe out the Israelites and failed to do so. The Amalekites did it. In Acts 17, they were trying to wipe out the generation of the nation of the Israelites and to take their stuff as booty, right? This was, you know, corporate genocide is something that God does, yes, and God can do it, and there's nothing wrong with it. I still don't see, you know, this is the one thing which, you know, because I was younger in my faith, and because obviously it was only September of the same year that I had become a Christian, that my faith wasn't as grounded, and so of course argumentation like this will stunt me a bit, but you know, nowadays it doesn't. I admit that yes, God commanded the absolute obliteration of nations, and he will do it again. But at this time, when he comes back, he won't be commanding anything. He will be the one doing it. I mean, this is not something that we need to shy away from. A lot of people get really hung up over the text of the Bible, especially the Old Testament text, which they think is quite controversial because they assume human beings have value, and they assume that human beings are righteous and just, you know, need to be cajoled and have safety blankets. And I don't believe that. I believe all men, women, and children are under the purview and the providence of God. And God can unalive anybody he sees fit. God can kill anybody. There is no Bible verse, there's no Quranic verse that suggests that God cannot do such a thing. The author of life has every right to kill, and that's what the Bible says. If you know, in fact, you know, speaking of, you know, another verse used within Muslim quote mines, which I dealt with in another live stream recently. How are you doing, by the way, More Machine? God bless you, man. God bless you, man. So another quote mine would be Numbers 31:18, you know, seminal passage where Moses commands the capturing of the Midianitish young women. You know, and so the mindset there is, oh, well, why would God do that? I'm like, why not? Why shouldn't God allow it? Sorry, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, so if within a nation or a people group you have this sort of tyranny that we have seen within the Amalekite people and the Amoritish people, and God steps in and enables their nation to be absolutely wiped out, and he has every right to do so. And obviously in Numbers 31:18, the Midianitish people have, according to Numbers 25, committed the abominable sin of adultery with Israelites. So God sends a plague to the Israelites, killing around 50,000 of them. Because yes, God can do that. We don't mess with God. God will kill you if you mess with him, bro. Like he's not somebody. He's not some little sky wimp. No, that's what atheists think. He's not that. You mess with God, he can do what he needs to do, right, and what he wants to do. And by the way, the Bible emphatically teaches, and this is where if you don't have a sort of reformed soteriology, you sort of end up being stuck in these sort of argumentations, because the Bible actually teaches that God has control over all things. But when the Muslim comes into the conversation and says things like, oh, well, you know, this is wrong. It's like, no, it isn't. The Quran teaches it. Did not your own prophet, according to Hadith at least, and we can go to Quran in a bit, but did not your own Hadith state that the Muhammad raced after, chased and killed and imprisoned the Jewish men of the Banu Qurayza who were unaware? He killed them. He killed them unawares, right? Muhammad then took Safiya bint Huyay captive, who was a, quote, polytheist from a family of polytheists. He had her husband and her family killed and then married her. So we're not talking about a worldview which simply escapes any sort of moral contention. But I would say with anything, God is able to do as he is fit. So really these arguments go nowhere, because we're of two different paradigms, and you know, the Muslim, my bad, is assuming their paradigm to be morally true. And so what we're talking about then is what is more morally consistent with what is going to be the law of God. That's what I would say. I would say Muhammad evidently broke the law of God. Christ kept the law of God. And so we should look to him as the example, not to Muhammad. Simple as that. That we don't really need to go and jump through hoops when it comes to moral contentions, because really we would both agree God can kill anybody he wants to, and I think that's what he actually says during this stream. This discussion.
Top that God and basically stick their babies onto it and burn them alive.
Okay, so
I believe that God, through the process, through that process, had to basically teach the children of Israel, and the children of Israel did this themselves.
And looks awkward.
The children of Israel did this themselves. They decided to sacrifice their babies. They committed wickedness. So God him to wipe out the entire nation. If he knows that nation will
he has the Quran.
1 minute. Will fester and grow
Yeah,
into
yeah,
an
right. He's literally admitted that.
Listen, he's changed his mind. He's a bright new person.
I didn't say change his mind.
1 second.
That would be a straw man against what was being said. And this is where it just becomes boring, because Ali Darwa loves his straw man. Oh, he changed his mind. No, he didn't. Jesus is the same yesterday, even now, forever. Yes. He agreed with the destruction of Malachites. And when he comes back, he'll have blood on his, his sheath, on his body. Right? I look like a different person there, man. It's just like I'm looking at a next dude, man. I don't know what it was with my standing positions. I don't know whether when I was younger I just utilized some weird standing positions. But yeah, so you can obviously see from a few of the content here just exactly what kind of stuff I was getting up to. It was every single week. There was always some muppetry going on now. That was Ben Bill, by the way. It's a shame he's not come back to the park, but I've heard that he ended up becoming a Catholic. And then, I'll say it, because at the end of the day, he's not even come out as it. And this could be all hearsay, but I heard from somebody who I know that he became a Unitarian. Now, I don't know whether he has or not. I don't know. And I'm not going to completely... because he may not have done so. I don't know. I heard it from hearsay from somebody. Now, I do apologize to that person for actually saying it, because I said I wouldn't say it. My apologies for saying it. But I felt it was necessary to say that, yes, this person is a Unitarian at this moment in time. But yeah, I remember it was just us at the park, really. And at this time, I think he was a Calvinist. The old Ben here, he became a Catholic. And, things went downhill. It's a different time. So, yeah, 4 years ago, you got Chris. Chris was actually, he started going at least 4 years after I'd come to Speaker's Corner. Interesting turnout there. So, a lot happened, actually. A lot happened. This is me talking to some Black Lives Matters about how they don't really care. Oh, no, that's not it. That's not it. But there's basically this conversation happened between me and some Black Lives Matter girls, which was interesting at best. I've still got this coat, by the way. I've still got this coat. So if people think it's surreal and I'm looking at somebody else, because it does look like a different person. Let me just show you something. Oh, maybe I threw it. Yeah, I mean, I might have thrown it. I mean, I did have the coat. I don't know. I did have it recently, but yeah, body mass index. It is what it is, bro. When did I first meet my wife? Okay, so somebody's asked me that. Well, actually, you can see it on camera. So I actually first met Amy here. So this is obviously 2020 when, the videos I'm showing you, but so Revelation 22:13. Now, a lot's happened. Pastor Redeemer, do you worship a Jew? What are you talking about, bro? Have you lost your damn mind? Shut up, bro. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I first met Amy here, right? Now, obviously, I'm not promoting this channel. Again, Fred has, unfortunately, become very sour, very malicious, especially when he first started doing this. Well, especially when, when we decided to go after Bob and others, he became very malicious. and decided to spread lies about us that were just simply not true. But so I wouldn't promote his channel, but yeah, this is the Revelation 22 channel. So I mean, I'm gonna just go because he's been going on for quite some time actually, Fred. I think around the amount of time that I've been doing it, he has. Now I just want to go back to, bro, come on. Let's go to I'll go to 2022 because I honestly can't find. Yeah, I honestly can't find that video, or I could try and just scroll through. I may have to scroll through because I can't find it, and unfortunately, it doesn't have playlists. It's something which really is stopping Fred from getting anywhere because he doesn't have playlists, right? So there's videos he's done from 7 years ago when he was just re-uploading clips, and that was what he was doing, right? Fred usually re-uploaded clips, right? Now he used to do a thing where he was going out with us and we were doing evangelism with him in the public because I wanted to move beyond at a certain point, beyond Speaker's Corner and going there and talking to Muslims every single Sunday. I wanted to move from there. And I remember the Lord sending me a dream around 2021 or around 2020 of me evangelizing in public. And I said, well, how can I do that? I was actually preaching the word to people. And I was saying, how can I do that, Lord? I'm too worried. And at that time, I was. But it just showed me this dream. And I had this burning desire to move beyond Speaker's Corner because that's all I'd known about Christianity. Other than, of course, the Bible and, resources online like Shamoon and stuff like that. I'd not really had any other sort of witness, right? Now, obviously, the last video of me on here is going to be me talking to Ananda about a month ago. G-checking as always. But yeah, we used to go out, and I'll just send you I'll just show you the video. Wait, let me just put that. Maybe it will come up with. So yeah, this is sort of what we were doing firsthand. So this is 3 years ago. So we went to King's Cross to evangelize. Now, we actually evangelized first in Trafalgar Square. Let's type in Trafalgar Square together first. So this is the first video that me and Amy were in, and this is the first video we'd done together. This is the first time I'd met her. Essentially, what happened is, I'd known her through Fred, because Fred had essentially Fred had noted from her that there was some call for evangelism to go out to spread the gospel in public. And at this time, I was like, look, I want to go out and do that. I was bored of Speaker's Corner, and I have been for the last 6 years now. Or at least, of course, a good 5 or 4. I've been bored of Speaker's Corner. And so because I was bored of Speaker's Corner, I wanted to go out there and branch out and do other ministry, but I wanted others around me. And so Fred was down for it. I was given Amy's number by Fred. And then we met up in Trafalgar Square. And on this day, we did this video.
And help me out.
What, a higher force that guides you?
No, I'm not going to lie to you. The hair's mash up. The hair's mash up. I can't lie. The hair's mash up. The charity shop jacket, mash up. The hair, nasty. I don't know what I was doing. I don't know what I was thinking. Can somebody ask me what's going on with man's hair?
That can help me out, yeah.
Well,
the hair is mad. It looks like a tree. Don't get me wrong, like there's nothing bad about it, but the hair's moved. Now, Amy actually told me, because Amy is rude and she likes to G-check me sometimes. Amy actually told me after this that your hair, it was flying. And it's like, yeah, the hair was mashed up. But yeah, this is the first time
ultimately
that I did public ministry with Amy, and we met up. And the first day my hair looks like that because, I've gone through at least 3 sets of dreads now. So these are what I've currently got on my head. These would be traditional locks, right? Let me. In fact, the screen didn't even show it. Oh, bro. Yeah, but that's my hair. It's moving.
It's like you seem like a decent person, and
Yeah, and you know, so I don't really care if they're a decent person. So, a megastar, you're just chatting crap, bro. I mean, I honestly battered every single Muslim in the park like a cod fillet. In fact, I battered them more than a sausage does. But you know, Big Smoke, like, there's no person in Speaker's Corner that can debate me. They're all low tier. Every single one, including you. And you're welcome to come up. I'll drop the link. You can come up and you can defend your religion, and we'll see how much you get battered. Anyway, so you know, here I have these sort of, you know, these are known as freeform locks. And so that's why they look like that. Whereas these are traditional, right? So let me just show you Wagwan with these. Now, these are traditional. And, you know, so traditional means that essentially you are continuously maintaining them. There's a lot more maintenance for these. They require crochet hooking to do, you know, and they obviously look more prim and proper, right? They're a lot more smart. Whereas that on my head is because of using a dread sponge, which I currently have on my head, twisting it together and letting it freeform. So those are technically that's how my hair looks if I just let it dread and don't twist it, manufacture it, whatever. Now, these are the longest dreads I've had ever. I started out with, when I went to the park for the first time, I started out with traditional that I turned into freeform. Then I cut my hair again, which is before that. I think it was around, when was this filmed? Let's see when this was filmed.
What's your name, by the way?
Jorge.
Jorge, nice name. Good to see you, bro.
Jorge, nice name. Good to see you. So yeah, so I remember, yeah, so this is 3 years ago. So yeah, I remember, I think it was around 2021 that I'd cut my hair again. So I cut my my traditionals that turned to freeform again. Then I cut them, and then I did a freeform where I'd basically sponge my hair. And so that's
What's
why
your name,
when
by the
you
way?
see my hair here, it's all clogged together. That is just pure freeform. Also, I used to cut my own hair. So, you know, you see the sharp fade here? I wasn't having that. Oh, man, there's some screaming, my bad.
Fabiano.
You're Spanish.
The hair is absolutely nuts.
No,
But I mean-
from Costa Rica.
Oh, Hispanic.
Yes, Hispanic.
Yeah.
So you seem like a decent person. You seem like you're open. Well, how can you convince me that it's wrong? Like, surely. Like, it may be wrong to you, but why is it?
Because you're
specifically wrong
not
to me?
respecting other people's boundaries.
But why should I, as an atheist, respect other people's boundaries?
By the way, this is the first time I'm using like the moral argument against atheists, especially in a public setting, because this is actually the first recorded instance of me doing it. I didn't really do that in terms of the wider public, although I did speak to atheists at the park. But, you know, this is my first time trying it, because I remember I used to just basically spam listening to Greg Barnson and, you know, and I found out who Greg Barson was through like Apologia Radio, through James White, stuff like that, Jeff Durbin stuff. And so that's how I knew about, you know, Greg Barson. I used to spam his stuff. And by the way, if you've not done so yet and you don't know any arguments for atheism or any arguments against atheism, like the transcendental argument for God or moral argument for God, easy to get. You just look up right now, Greg Barson on YouTube. He has great arguments against atheism. So far, no atheist can deal with the transcendental argument for God. But yeah,
because that person will be church. And for example,
so yeah, I first met Amy here, and you know, we ended up doing so, and I don't know why Amy's face is so, look
Both
at that,
parents,
man.
that's what I told her, because the reason why God instituted marriage, obviously, because if you read what Jesus said about marriage, he said in the beginning they were male and female, Adam and Eve, right?
Yeah.
So Adam and Eve were male and female, and it was instituted so that they themselves, one day became one flesh, as Michael said.
Yeah.
So like by doing that, he institutes this covenantal situation where they come into a situation where they bond, and when they...
It's like, so this was 3 years ago, and this is when I first met Amy. I think so. I think I knew her for 4 years, actually. I don't think it was 3 years, but yeah. This is saying 2022, so make of it what you will, but it was December 30th, 2022. That's the date when I first met Amy. I actually saw Amy beforehand because she was around Bob and others for a bit before that, but I actually saw her for the first time here. So that's how we first met, and then we started to do other bits of evangelism outside. So then we started to do, like, you know, this was the same day as the evangelism we did, and then we did like, you know, we did Leicester Square evangelism here, which would have been around less time, maybe 3 years ago, whatever. So evangelism against Muslims. I spoke to a Muslim lady about feminism, so around that time. So what we were doing was essentially just going to different areas and evangelizing. Maybe you'll be able to see, before I get to Mohammed and Jab, our debate was a bit earlier on. I don't know. I'm not about to kiss him, bro. What's going on? Anyway, so yeah, this, of course, 3 years ago, this discussion happened. Amy always has a worried look on her face. Every time I see her, she always has a worried look. I don't know what's that about. But yeah, this was Canary Wharf. We got actually kicked out of Canary Wharf, so that's why we don't go there anymore, because apparently you can't film in Canary Wharf. So yeah, that's something we did. This was done. I think this was around 2 years ago, actually. Or, no, it says 3 years ago. So yeah, 2023. So yeah, 3 years ago technically. But this was done 3 years ago, around February, actually. Great conversation with 3 atheist girls. 3 years ago again. So what we were doing was essentially going to Leicester Square, going to London Bridge. This was in London Bridge. By the way, let me show you this. Let me show you this.
Running a business, you will be out.
Because nobody knows to this day what happened. I know what happened because I was the dude.
Headwinds. Outdone.
We're both full of the Holy
by the
Spirit, my
obstacles.
friend.
Outdone by the complexities.
Outdone.
Let me just get rid of
We
that.
believe that Jesus is the Son.
Now just look at my face, right?
We
Look at my
believe
face.
that we
I mean, you know, Amy looks as
I mean, we
beautiful
are
as
in a
she
public
always
place,
does.
so
I mean, look
under
at my
legislation
face.
we are allowed.
believe to-
Right, so your colleague here
Now look at no. You know, now you guys don't know. You guys don't know what's going on with my face. Let me
expressed a belief that Jesus is a created being, and I'm obviously going to prove using this Bible that no, he isn't. What Bible version do you?
I've got an abscess in my face. That's what it is. I have an abscess. I have a tooth abscess. I had to literally get a moxilin. I had to get a moxilin literally a couple of days after this was recorded. My face was swelling up. So I was evangelizing whilst my face was swelling up. Now, you don't want to get an abscess. They hurts like hell, man. Was this the day that Amy fell in love? Probably, yeah. I don't know. I'm new to this. Okay, cool. We can easily have a chat. I'll let you up momentarily. I'm just going through Speaker's Corner videos. Are Roman Catholics saved? No. But again, the caveat is going to be, and I want to make the caveat very clear, because, you know, what I'm saying a Roman Catholic is going to be one who affirms for the rest of their life the gospel of the Roman Catholic Church. So that's simple. If somebody affirms the false gospel of the Roman Catholic Church, prayers to Mary, veneration of icons, they are not saved in the general sense, right? Now, you know, when it comes to the nuance, though, and I always speak about the nuance is going to be this, that, what do we do with people who are in the Catholic Church right now but end up leaving or end up becoming Christians later down the line, or end up, professing a new theological understanding on their deathbeds. Well, of course, they are saved. But we're not talking about them. I'm talking about those who affirm the gospel of Rome. Now, here's the interesting question, which we'll all be, seeing in heaven, is that, well, God, at this judgment, is there going to be some wiggle room for those who are, outside of this paradigm to be saved? We don't know that. We don't know that at all. But what we can know is this: if somebody professes the gospel of the Roman Catholic Church, they're anathema. It says, let them be anathema. That's what we can know. So we can know that somebody who's a Roman Catholic who professes the Roman Catholic gospel, that salvation is by faith, baptism, and the keeping of the 10 Commandments, they are anathema. Because again, salvation is only by faith alone. It's not by faith, baptism, and keeping the 10 Commandments. Those are very, very different things. I don't know where my glasses are. My eyes are just messing about. Easy. Okay, yeah. You can't see. Okay. I hope you could see now, because I'm going to show it on screen. There you go. So yeah. What me and Amy would do.
We're not here for debates. We're not here for arguments.
We would go to different areas and
20th century. Our church goes back to at least 1 BC. The Trinitarian doctrine goes back way before that as well.
Yeah.
So there's no proof of this Jehovah's Witness doctrine, but at the same time,
no, I was a bit arrogant, and yeah, I could tell I was a bit arrogant. I was a bit of a little so and so, right? But that comes from Sam Shamoon mindset, blah blah blahing. But yeah, we did evangelism, so that's how me and Amy met. We did evangelism. We spoke to this guy who was a universalist that same day. We went to Leicester Square, spoke to a few people there. Somebody says they'll encourage their daughter to have casual sex. This is called Stratford. Stratford is another place. Obviously, we've been up there recently, but it's another place where we were doing evangelism. So we've done that up there. So for us, that was what the move away from Speaker's Corner into what you're seeing more in the modern day, which is us evangelizing. And by the grace of God, we've gone outside of the sphere of even Leicester Square and Trafalgar Square and Stratford to Rome, to Greek, to Portugal, and done evangelism there. So that's all on the channel if you want to see it, by the way. That's not... oh yeah. Whack. That we don't need to talk about that. That was that's not good. We don't need to talk about that. So yeah, that's how we met. But I just wanted to go to the Muhammad Hijab. There was some interesting points there. I first discussed with him in 2020, by the way, but it didn't go anywhere because Kay had ruined the argument by involving herself. All right, but I just want to get to it if I can. If I can find it, then I will. I don't know whether I was called Jono at this point, because I put Bloodfire in, but I don't know whether I was called Jono, by the way. Maybe I wasn't. I can't remember. It's been quite some time. I think it's been at least 3 years since that debate, actually. So I think it would have been around the same year that we had decided to put Muhammad Hijab versus or fire. Okay. Maybe that'll clear up site. Well, it's not on here. I don't know. That's interesting. Because that was an embarrassment for Hijab. That was a complete wiping. Yeah. It's not on there, so I don't have to show it. So yeah, what I've seen happening. Megastar, I'm gonna block you so you can go and watch the Tweenies or see BBC and not be bored anymore, because obviously, you have the attention span of a gnat. So what I'll be doing is just blocking you there. There we go. Now you won't be bored anymore. So there you go. There you go. Take care, Megastar. You absolute moron. Anyway. So yeah, anyway, so that was pretty much it. As I said to you before, Speaker's Corner used to be a place, a hub where people would go, and there would be, tons of people there, and they would be different ideologies. But essentially, over time, it's lessened to the point where now you have, maybe even 100 people down there at one time. But even then, the sort of politics of the place has changed as well. So it used to be about debating different worldviews and different ideologies, but now it's just simply about debating Muslims. And so in recent years, especially after the sort of, Chris coming and David coming, it's just all been about debating Dawa, debating the same Dawa over and over again, debating the same 10 people over and over again, and getting nowhere. And so, yeah, Speaker's Corner's dead. It's effectively dead. And this is just its burial party. It's literally dead. There's no room for it anymore. It's boring. It's drab. It lost any sort of sense of being an important place, if it ever had anything like that. We hear all the time about the fact that Karl Marx was up there, Lenin was up there, but how I see it is that it's just a plot of land. It's just a bit of grass, right? Wherever Lenin stepped, I don't care. But the historical prominence of that place is completely diminished to basically, tourists going up there, shouting at random dudes dressed up as cowboys and, yelly old people. That's what it's about. And by the grace of God, it's completely diminished. And I'm glad. I'm happy. I'm very happy that it's dead. And I pray that it continues to die to the point where nobody goes there anymore. Even the people who were barking about us not having an audience now don't have an audience themselves. Do you think it could revive in the future? No. So even if people were to turn up en masse and to go down there, which is possible to happen, it can happen, don't get me wrong. And you could have that. Even if that were to happen, I just don't see that spiritually such a place can be revived. I think it's dead spiritually. Ecumenism has wrecked it. Ecumenism is the central reason behind this wrecking. But also the ideological diversity that we're seeing is just something not really happening in the main stage anymore. With the rise of TikTok and the rise of online social media platforms, people just don't feel it necessary to go to such places anymore. And I get it. Because if from the comfort of your home, you can talk to X, Y, and Z, why would you bother? Now things may change, sure. I'm not saying they are not going to change. But I think at this current moment in time, I do not see myself going back. I do not see any reason to go back. Because it is a dead place. And it's not only dead physically, but dead spiritually. Also, it has a season. Everything has a season, right? So, with the golden age of Speaker's Corner, which is I call the Tan era, which is when you would see Jedi, or you would see the likes of Respect, or a younger looking Bob and Sarah Garvey. In that age and era, there was a lot more Roadman. It was a lot more vibrant. There was a lot more different ideologies and ideological presuppositions. And I don't know whether it was because of the lack of social media. Bear in mind, people during that time would have only had to YouTube, really, and maybe Facebook or Twitter, but nothing like what you're seeing with TikTok, which is like a main platform where you can discuss and engage with others in debates and discussion. And also because I think the sort of fad of doing that stuff has changed as well. People are not shocked by it. So seeing somebody scream in the park, F this and your mother's an N-word, that's, that has shock value, right? And that will get people up there going, yeah, I want to go and see this. But after a while, you just get bored of it. You get bored of it. And you want to move on. You want to branch out. You want to do other stuff. And that's where I'm going. Sad to say that someone like Anne Widdecombe isn't in heaven because she rejected Christ's finished work and trusted in Rome and herself. Well, it is a shame. Yes, it is a shame. But you don't know how God was working in life before then. And how I see it is it works both ways, that God convicts us. God convicts the hearts. The Bible says that God will pour his spirit on all men. So, you know, God can convict. And so I don't feel sorry for those who reject the conviction of God, because I believe they are truly rejecting the conviction of God. And that conviction is, it's something that wakes us up and tells us, look, you're not believing in the truth. Believe in me. And Christ wants us to believe in him. But, so, I mean, yeah, I don't have any future plans of going up there. And I think since Amy's agreed, I won't be going up there ever again. Since Amy's agreed, I won't be going up there ever again. But that being said, there is room for improvement. And I'll say the improvement needs to come from a different ideological stance. I think we've had the same 10 debates the same 10 times. I think where there may be growth is an ethno-nationalist front, especially those who are protesting our current leaders. Maybe there'll be more of a political push. Maybe there'll be a bit of growth if Avery comes down and, again, people want to see their hippie pop stars again. But no real growth in terms of the intellectual debates down there, unfortunately. There's no real growth. We've heard them all, we've seen them all. And in fact, people want to now branch out into the other avenues, like go on to Jubilee and stuff like that. Speaker's Corner probably brought more social media fame Muslims than Christians. Well, I agree with you. Speaker's Corner was really something that the Muslims benefited from. They benefited from that. Ali Dawa skyrocketed his channel for Speaker's Corner. Mohammed Ajab, the same thing. Like, Mohammed Ajab was nothing 10 years ago. He was just a dude going down there like everybody else. Right? And now all of a sudden he's something because of that place. But it's not just that place. I mean, for example, the most prominent of all supposed Christian individuals is going to be none other than Bob, right? So Bob would have been the more prominent in terms of ecumenist down there. No ecumenist has surpassed the sort of notoriety of Bob. And yet, outside of the corner, you're seeing young Bob actually gain more prominence or notoriety or infamy than Bob has ever had. Right, in the political sphere, people know about him. Young Bob's been on Talk TV. Young Bob has been on various other channels. I think he spoke to Liam something. I can't remember his name. I don't really follow these people. But, he's had hundreds of thousands of views on his Twitter. So he's notable within the political sphere and that really, Speaker's Corner really skyrocketed that when he started to associate through Urban Scoop with Tommy Robinson and eventually be a part of Turning Point UK before he ended up being booted out of there. We don't know her final moments, and that's the truth. We don't know her final moments. We don't know what she said before she died. We don't know who she cried out to. And I truly believe that even if a Catholic cries out truthfully to Christ, he will save. But it really does depend on what they actually know of Christ. And I don't know that. I don't know. She could have professed Catholic positions publicly, but then within the confines of our own property, could have had a more born again presupposition. We don't know. So speculation goes too far. But yeah, I mean, not only Mohammed Ajab and Ali Dawa, who are the most prominent ones, but you'd even see Nazmor, of course. Nazmor made some sort of fame out of there. Rayhan did, but then he ended up moving to Stratford. You don't really see him in Speaker's Corner that much. So, it has worked in their favour, though, in that sense. But it really is a trash place to be. It's ended, and the reason why it's ended is because there's just not this sort of need for it anymore. People have advanced beyond it, and it's a good thing to see. But more important, God has enabled them. Oh yeah, Hamza and the Muslim. Yeah, of course, right. Hamza and the Muslim Lantern. The Hamza saga was interesting. That was interesting, especially in 2023 when I'd first had a discussion with him. He's very talkative, the old Darren. But he loves his disingenuous arguments. Oh, I don't speak to Christians about the church. Oh, sorry, I don't speak to Christians about Islam. It's better to be in person. Well, I love Japan. That's an opinion. Sure, I'm not saying I I disagree with your opinion, but it's your opinion. I would say I love to discuss virtually. You know, I having already done it in person for the last 6 years. But yeah, I would agree to an extent that for me, in person evangelism is better than, you know, ones online. But when it comes to debates or discussions, I prefer to have them online. One, because it's more ordered. Secondly, I have more control. When you debate, when you waste time butting heads with goats at Speaker's Corner, you're just shouting past each other. You're getting nowhere. It does nothing. And nobody remembers the debates. They remember how much you shouted. They said, "Oh, this is the shouty guy," or "This is the angry kid." They don't remember what you said. They're not thinking that. Also, a lot of dumbos watch Speaker's Corner, man. A lot of stupid people watch Speaker's Corner, so it just ends up, you know, you get people in the comment section saying, "Oh, it didn't make an argument." Like, you know, that's how stupid those people are. So you're dealing with like low tier, you know, low level people. And when people say they recognize me from Speaker's Corner, I'm actually worried about their mental health. Because unless, of course, I've known you the whole time at Speaker's Corner, you shouldn't recognize me at all. I'm nothing. But the best work we've done has been, and I say this to this day, has been Paul Grant. Now, you know, don't get me wrong, the Lord has used us in mighty ways, but the Lord has been very gracious to use us here with Paul Grant. Now, Paul Grant unfortunately passed away. And let me tell you how great the power of God is. If you've not heard this story already, Paul Grant, we first met him here. So I'm going to play it for you. So as I said to you before, me and Amy were doing evangelism in Leicester Square, Trafalgar Square, King's Cross. This is when we came to, this is around the time, 2023, when we came to King's Cross to do evangelism. We met this young dwarf. What is this, man? That's what I've seen that guy before on TikTok. So there is a lot of cussing, by the way, so warning. Sorry, it's him. Okay, sorry, I was staring.
And he was an Ewok in Star Wars. This is the video.
My bad.
Hey,
so let me sorry, because it was such a while ago.
Yeah,
And I really, you know, I really miss Paul Grant. In a sense, I don't miss him. You know what I mean? I missed those times as well, but at the same time, you know, Paul was, you know, he was a decent guy who had fallen into hard times, and it's kind of sad.
No, but dwarf actor Paul Grant. Dwarf actor Paul Grant.
Dwarf actor Paul Grant. Yeah, I'm gonna put that in.
Boom! But there's a bit of naughty stuff on there as well.
Wait, were you doing the old that's
me. How do you know? How do you know? How do you know?
I didn't know.
But you know what I'm saying? We watch. Good. Like that.
Oh, wait. Yeah, he was doing. His name's Paul. This is him. His name's Paul Grant. He's a Star Wars actor. Wait,
Snorting cocaine.
He was snorting cocaine, and he was an Ewok in Star Wars. This is the.
Thank you.
Hey, my God. Wait.
Well, man.
Yes, man. We have an actual actor here.
Yeah, so I mean, I was sort of, that was a bit cringe on my side. You know, we have an actual actor here, but yeah, he literally was a dwarf actor. So Paul Grant starred in, like, you know, Harry Potter. He starred in Willow, which was some weird film with David Bowie. He starred in Star Wars as one of the Ewoks. He's starred in tons of films, right? You know, especially like you can see the scene in Harry Potter where there's a bunch of dwarfs and they're just in like what is supposed to be a bank, and like that's where he in fact was, right? And I didn't know who he was. I just thought there's a drunk dwarf. He's approached me and he's swearing at me. But what that turned out to be the best moment of evangelism. Why? Because of the impact it had, right? So, I'm going to show you, and by the way, I've not seen this as of late, and I'm not saying it means anything, sure, but, in the grand scheme of things, it proves that God really pushed our ministry and still continues to push our ministry outside of Park. But, I've not seen anything as great as this. This was really great. Like, so imagine this. This is a Metro article on Paul Grant passing away, right? And look what it says here. He had died after collapsing outside of King's Cross Station. The people I showed this to, they're surprised. They're like, well, you saw him 3 weeks before he died. I'm like, yes, I saw Paul Grant 3 weeks before he died. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I wanted to get to the article regarding Paul Grant's death because that's not, I think the Metro tried to conceal it. So, this is, this is the last interview he's had, bear in mind, right? This is the last interview he's ever had. All right. And that was with me. Let me move that, sorry. So, yeah, he was admitting, and look, there you have it. I hope it's on screen. I hope it's on screen. Yeah, there you go. There you have it. This was in the Metro. No, sorry, this was in the Guardian. Actually, this was in the Guardian. The Guardian actually promoted this after 3 weeks after he died. They'd found the conversation we had. Now, he claims to have slept with Warwick Davis's wife. Everybody knows about Warwick Davis, right? Famous dwarf. He's had his own programs on TV, etc., etc. He had blown his Star Wars fortune, apparently. Now, what happened during this conversation is that Amy gave him a tract. Amy gave Paul Grant here a tract, which is it was just basically like, what can you do to be saved? How can you be saved? Who is Jesus? It was a basic tract, right? But, Amy gave it to him and he kept the tract. He kept the tract for 3 weeks in his pocket, which his own daughter Sophie said. His own daughter Sophie had said that, quote, he had kept the tract in his pocket and he never does that. So before he died, when he died, not before he died, when he died, he was found with the tract in the back of his pocket. And I was like, wow. So you mean to tell me God put me in that position to give him the gospel? And not only that, for God further to use Amy to give him the tracts, and then he will know more about the gospel so that when he died, he knew about Christ. It's like, yeah. No, my friend, without God, I wouldn't have met my wife. Have some respect. Without Christ, I wouldn't have met my wife. It's not to do with Speaker's Corner. Speaker's Corner means nothing. Also, I didn't meet Amy at Speaker's Corner the first time I saw her. Maybe I saw her at Speaker's Corner, but the first time we started evangelizing was at Trafalgar Square. That's where I first started speaking to her, meeting with her and stuff like that. So in fact, the first time me and Amy did ministry and actually met each other wasn't even in the corner. Although I knew she was going there and I saw her there. The first time that I met Amy was outside the corner and it was at Trafalgar Square. You can see that online. So SC has done nothing for me. SC has done nothing. It's dead. It's a trash hole. And I pray that, everybody stops going there. But this, what we did here, no, you don't. What you need to do is leave the corner. That's what you need to do. But anyway, so this is literally here for everybody to see. And I went to Sophie. I went to see Sophie at her dad's funeral. Obviously, Paul Grant is her father, right? And you know, we gave Sophie the gospel, and we shared it with her husband, or you know, her boyfriend, and we shared it with her children as well. And we shared it with them, and you know, to the grace of God, they've even been considering it. And you know what? Even people watching have been considering it. And you know why? Because of the supernatural nature in which God had called, knowing that, and of course, God knows all things, knowing that Paul Grant would die, God had called us to stand there to give him the gospel, to give him the tract, so that he may turn and live and trust in Christ. And, you know, that may have been what would have happened. You know, apparently he collapsed and passed away outside this train station. He apparently may have been waiting for a friend, which is sad. It's sad, right? There's so much distraction. Let me just move the mic a bit closer. Yeah, so apparently he would have been trapped. He would have been outside in the cold, alone, and he would have passed away. Apparently he just collapsed and was declared brain dead. You know, now I don't know what the cause of it was. Even Shield, the YouTube channel, it says the YouTube channel Revelation 22:13. You know, but you know, to this day, this is the most top tier stuff that God has done through us. Top tier, to utilize us to share His gospel, that gospel be preached, even to the point where people can go and look on the video themselves right now, hear the gospel, and God use that for His purposes. It doesn't always happen, right? Doesn't always happen. Now, yeah, we've spoken to other people who've had some prominence, like, you know, obviously Brendan Kavanagh was the other one. Kavanagh was a bit of a lunatic, and, you know, Kavanagh really was spiraled out of control when we had spoke to him. He really did not want to engage. Hey, Casey, how you doing? God bless you, man. Did you apologize, ask forgiveness to victims? What victim? Where's the victim? Sorry. Who's the victim? I don't know what you're talking about, mate. You've probably lost your mind. You know. So I mean, if you can tell us where the victim is and point to the air. So yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. It's a real shame. You know. But by the grace of God, the Lord still continues to use this channel, and of course continues to use us for His purposes, to glorify His name. Yeah, you can. Come on, man. I'm in the middle of talking, man. You coming in here, bro?
But you talk non-stop anyway.
Yeah, and I need to talk non-stop, bro. If I don't, then the voices will come back. I'm joking. Yeah, so
why are you doing this? That's weird. You don't need to do that.
Because you and everybody else talking. I can hear you in the background. So like,
Okay.
I mean, close the door, please.
Yeah, guys, they're going out anyway. It's fine.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, you know, the Lord is, of course, doing His gracious works through our ministry, and you know, there's so much good stuff He's done that I don't see any reason to go Speaker's Corner. I don't feel like it benefits anybody to go, and I would caution, especially younger Christians, especially new Christians, especially, you know, Christians who are not new, don't go. Don't go. You're wasting your time. The ecumenical movement has tanked the place. Muslims have destroyed the place. Nobody wants to go there anymore. Stop going. Instead, focus on public ministry. Learn from Paul Grant. Learn from it. Because God can use you in that very moment to share the gospel to somebody, that same gospel lead to many people learning it. But then you go down Speaker's Corner, you ruin your witness, you end up shouting at somebody who's a dog and a swine, wasting your time. We're not called to do that. The Bible says to dust your feet. That's what it says. Like literally wipe the dust of that town off your feet, move on, stop continuing to go there. And I would say, honestly, it would be casting pearls for swine to continue to go down Speaker's Corner. And so I've spoken to Amy about this, and I won't be going. And that's that. So if anybody's got any comments, questions, let me know. You know, I've been going on for like at least 2 hours now, running through a few things. I did say I would mention Mohammed Hijab. The conversation's there, but it's probably on Soko somewhere. You'd have to find it. But yeah, that conversation went wild with Hijab. You know, Yeah. But yeah, anyway, I'm gonna clock out because it's been a long day. Anyway, take care. God bless.